if you don't mind telling everybody about your book that you wrote and some of the tools that they can use from that book to kind of help them deal with students or their kids going through this process.
Well, my first book, Psychoacademic Holocaust, the special ed and ADHD wars against Black boys. I wrote that book because as I traveled the country, being a certified school psychologist, I noticed that most Black parents knew nothing about educational law, and they knew nothing about behavioral procedure, and they knew nothing about special education policy. So when I wrote Psychoacademic Holocaust, I thought that I hit the nail on the head. But parents came back, and although the book benefited them, they still had a lot of unanswered questions. So I said, I got to get more technical this time. I got to really go down to the grassroots and make sure they understand this thing. And so Black Parent Advocate grew out of a need to make sure Black parents, particularly mothers, since they're raising so many of our children alone, that they would have a how-to manual on how to deal with any problem the school throws at you. So half of that book are letters that you can reproduce, put your name on it, take mine off, and give to the school. So for example, if you think your child is mentally gifted and they're refusing to evaluate your child for mental giftedness, and they do that a lot in Black school districts because a lot of white people don't think Black kids can be mentally gifted. So I have a letter in there that you reproduce and you send it into the school. If Ohio State Department of Education still has a gifted policy, you can still request a gifted evaluation. A lot of parents don't know that. Let's say you want your child evaluated for speech in preschool because special education begins at age 3 and special education ends at age 21 or high school graduation, whichever happens first. So if you got a 3-year-old in preschool and they have a speech problem and you want to get them some speech services, you can contact the special ed department of Cleveland Metropolitan Public Schools and say, I have a 3-year-old who I think can benefit from speech services. I have the letter in there. Now let's look at the other side. Let's say your child been in special ed 3 years, still can't read. Special ed 3 years, still can't count. Special ed 3 years, still can't comprehend, which means the IEP team has failed your child. That means if we can prove that they have failed your child, not you, because you don't send them to school, not you, because you don't go to IEP meetings, not you, because you don't check homework, but because of the failure of the school. If we can prove the school failed your disabled child, according to federal law, you can make Cleveland Metropolitan Public Schools pay for your child to go to a private school at public expense. I help parents do it all over America. But the biggest problem with helping Black parents get private schools for the disabled children is your paperwork is never organized. You gotta keep your paperwork together because the first thing I need to see are your child's psychological evaluations. A child with a disability must be reevaluated every 3 years in America. So if your child got put in special ed in the second, there's a 5th grade eval, there's an 8th grade eval, there's an 11th grade eval. If your child got put in special ed in kindergarten, there's a 3rd grade eval, a 6th grade eval, a 9th grade eval, and a 12th grade eval. If you don't have the paperwork, how in the hell am I going to trace this whole situation back to the beginning? And I'll stop with this, and I talk about this in my book. No Black child should be getting evaluated for anything except speech under the age of 7. Did y'all hear what I said? Not reading, not math, not comprehension, not intellectual, not emotional, not ADHD, conduct disorder, and why not? Why is Dr. Umar saying you should never let a Black child get evaluated under the age of 7? Because the earlier the child is, the more likely we can get the diagnosis wrong, Baba. You feel me? Because when a child is young, they're still growing and learning. There's no psychologist in America that can tell you for certain that your 3-year-old is autistic. Now, autism is real, but autism is often misdiagnosed. Why? Because we get them evaluated too soon. And the reason we get them evaluated too soon, Baba, the reason the preschools push it is they want the special ed money. Did y'all hear me? They want the special ed money. They don't care about your child. They want the money. And since special ed begins at 3, if you silly enough to let them evaluate a 3-year-old, okay, they'll put them in special ed so they can get that money. A special ed child is worth, on average, twice as much as a regular child. So let me give you an example. Let's say Cleveland Public Schools spends $10,000 a year on a child, Bob, a regular child. Right. The minute I say he's autistic, the minute I say he's emotionally disturbed, the minute I say he has a reading problem, he ain't worth 10. He worth 20. And they get the extra 10 every year. So if you put your second grader in special ed and they get an extra $10,000 a year, by the time he graduates from 12th grade, that's $100,000 extra for one. So how much money do they get in Cleveland schools for 100? How much is the special ed budget in Cleveland schools for 1,000? They are literally pimping our children in the name of miseducation. And the saddest thing is most of our children who have been determined to be learning disabled are not learning disabled. You know what their real problem is? Lazy disabled. They don't want to learn how to read. They don't feel like learning how to count. They don't feel like learning how to comprehend. And guess what, parents? A lot of you are guilty too, because you are raising lazy ass black children. They do what they want when they feel like it. What is the number one job of a black parent in America after you teach your child to love themselves? It is to teach your child discipline. And what is Dr. Umar's definition of discipline? It is the ability to do what you don't want to do when it has to be done, whether you like it or not. And if you graduate a 12th grader who don't have self-control and self-discipline, you have just created a victim for the white power structure.